Okay, welcome everybody. Firstly, just want to say thank you for registering for the webinar. If you're watching this live, thank you for taking some time out of your day to join Andrew and I. Great to have you with us. I noticed we're joined by customers here in the onboarding phase. So yeah, great to have you with us guys, and also customers who've been with us for a long time. So great to have you there too. Just a very quick introduction from me. My name is Jessica. I run the marketing here at ProspectSoft. And before we get started, I just want to note actually that we are obviously recording this session, and we will send out a copy of the slides with the recording so you can refer back to those, and you can share it with any colleagues if you like. Also, for those that are joining live, please note that you can use the chat function. So that should be on your Zoom settings there. So we will be keeping an eye on that chat throughout the session. Whilst Andy's presenting, we do encourage questions. I'll be keeping those questions anonymous, so ask away, and in the Q&A I'll get those answered for you with Andrew. And just before I hand over to Andy, actually, I just want to take a look at the structure of the session so you know what to expect. So firstly, we'll introduce you to some of the concepts and kind of key business objectives of using a quote to order workflow, just to familiarize yourself with some of the basics, and then we'll take a look at the 5 kind of key steps in building and optimizing a quote to order workflow using the features in Prospect CRM. So that's right from building accurate quotes and profitable quotes, and then generating great quote documents, all the way through to ensuring that the quote acceptance is there, processing the orders, and configuring those automated notifications for both your team members but also your customers, so they get notified and everybody receives information throughout the process. So it's kind of that end-to-end process we're looking at today. In the follow-up email, I will also include a link to our quote to order workflow hub, which has all of the assets you'll need, all of the how-to sort of documents in there. So I know some of you are already using a quote to order workflow in Prospect. Some of you are sort of starting from scratch. So whether you're enhancing what you've got or you're starting from the beginning, there'll be documentation in that landing page for you, so you can start making use of this and taking advantage of the great features that we've got. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Andrew, who is going to take us through and introduce himself and get started with the webinar.
Thanks, Jess. And I have to say thanks for the photo of me still with hair. Okay, let's move this. So I thought it was worth just clarifying right at the beginning what we're not going to cover as much as what we are going to cover. So, you know, a successful sales system, set of processes, you know, would take you all the way from obviously generating inquiries and leads in the first place and doing the marketing that gets you those inquiries. You know, unless you've got, you know, very straightforward sales process, there's inevitably some requirement to nurture those inquiries and those opportunities to get the customer to the point where they're asking you for a quote, and doing the quote is appropriate. And we're not going to cover any of that today. At the end, we'll talk about some follow-up webinars that we've got planned. But we're going to today assume that you've already done all of that, and we're at the stage where the customer wants the quote, and we're just really going to focus on how we build and send great quotes that make customers place their orders, and we get from that doing a quote through to getting the confirmed order from the customer. And obviously there's some things that would follow that naturally. Clearly, doing all the operational stuff like shipping the goods, invoicing, and managing the inventory. We're definitely not going to cover any of that, because probably you're doing that in a different system. You'll be using Unleashed or Sage or Deer inventory or Sin7 or something to do that. And then I think that there's something that SME wholesale and distributors miss a lot, and that I'm definitely keen to follow up and talk about, and that's how we convert transactional customers to relational customers. You know, you get your first order from a customer, because they wanted whatever you've got to sell at that moment in time. But converting them to repeat customers who have a relationship with you and come to you as the go-to supplier for that range of products, that's a really critical stage in developing your profitability and your growth. And then obviously once you've done that there's a requirement over time to maximize the lifetime value from each of these customers, and that's all about retaining them for longer, cross-selling them, upselling them, and if you do lose them, going back and reacquiring them when hopefully they found the grass is not greener with another supplier. So there's lots to running a successful sales system, but today we're just going to focus on that quote to order workflow. And if there are other areas of that have sparked your interest and things you're keen to learn more about, obviously, as I say, we will be doing some follow-up webinars on all of these topics. But our growth playbook has been designed to give you the kind of key building blocks of each of those critical sort of sales and marketing processes. So I think Jess will probably send out some links to the growth playbook at the end, as well as the specific quote to order workflow. And there's lots of tools and features and documentation on each of these areas of the growth playbook to help you all the way from attracting new customers all the way through retaining them, upselling them, etc. As I say, for today, we're really going to focus on just this kind of one square of quote to order workflow. So why should you be interested in defining a quote to order workflow? Well, it's an essential part, but it is only one part, but it is an essential part of building a repeatable, scalable, and profitable sales motion. But by sales motion, I mean just having an engine that just continuously gives you sales, in a smooth flow. And as I say, quote to order workflow is only one part of that. There are lots of bits of a successful sales motion, but just specifically, why am I saying repeatable, scalable, and profitable? Well, why wouldn't you just let your sales team, do their selling willy-nilly, and just have their own way of doing things? Well, repeatable is really about ensuring that you don't just have one-off success, that you've got a defined system that works again and again. Scalable, if you're a very small business, then the business owners or the founders of that business are probably doing the selling in a very small business, in a startup. But as you start to scale that business, you need to be able to hire salespeople and have them be just as successful as the founders, the creators of the business, and that means you have to be able to processize that success and can it up so that you can give it to somebody. And then over time, you want to be able to hire salespeople repeatedly because hopefully you're going to scale the sales team, but also some people will leave, and you just want to be able to bring people in and get them successful quickly, and then you can scale your sales team and keep having that success as you scale it. Profitability is perhaps seems obvious. You want your quotes to have more revenue than cost, so that they're profitable quotes. But it's actually a bit deeper than that, because it's not just about having some profit; it's about maximizing the profit for each sale and increasing the profit beyond the minimum to the maximum. But there's always a hidden cost particularly in quotes, because people get involved and salespeople are building the quotes, chasing the customers and processing the orders. So making all of that seamless and really efficient is critical. Otherwise, this kind of you've got the raw cost of a quote, which is your the price you sell them at versus the cost of buying those goods. But you've got all this hidden cost of people time, and it's amazing how quickly too much faffing around and inefficient processes can just undermine the profitability of otherwise good profitable quotes. So doing everything efficiently is critical to that profitability. And as I say, these three elements of a successful sales motion are applicable throughout the whole sales process, not just quote to order. And equally, the way I would recommend you going about creating a repeatable, scalable, and profitable sales motion is the same, whether we're talking about quote to order workflow or other areas of your sales process. And the steps are pretty straightforward. First thing is to define a process. Even if it's not a great one, just define one. Just write down and processize what you're currently doing so that you've got a defined process that you've implemented and tested and is a repeatable process, even if it's not a great one. Then a pretty critical element of that is to educate the rest of the team so that they know about this process and that they understand how to use it and that they start to do that consistently and get the same success across the entire team and across all your customers and all of your quotes and orders and your sales process. And then, the truth is that educating people, giving them a bit of training is not enough. You'll then need to monitor to make sure that that process is being carried out. You'll also need to coach people where they're struggling or where they're just not adopting it for some reason. And that through that process of monitoring and coaching, not only do you start to enforce and create the consistency, but perhaps more importantly, you get to gather feedback, do some analysis, so that you can then iterate and refine this whole process. So, you get some feedback, you do some analysis, you think you can improve the process. So you define a new process or a slight improvement to the process you've got, then you educate everybody on that new process. And then again, you monitor it to make sure that you are now being more successful than you were before. And you just keep going around this cycle. And I think my golden tip is not to spend too long trying to define a perfect process in the first place, because you never will. You will only find the perfect process by trying it and by monitoring it and getting feedback from your sales team. So just define something, educate everybody on what that is, get everybody to commit to giving it a go, even if they don't like it, and promise them that you'll then take the feedback and then go around the cycle improving it as a team. And as I say, these 3 steps are just the way to build a successful process, whatever that process be. And you should use this throughout your sales motion and all the different stages of your sales motion to build success into your sales team. But let's return to the specific topic of this webinar, which is the quote to order workflow and the keys to successful quoting. And the first thing is to make it easy for the sales team to build accurate quotes. I said part of the profitability is not losing all the time, and committing too much time to doing each of these quotes, because that'll undermine the profitability. But also, salespeople want to be selling; they don't want to be doing admin. So, make it easy for the sales team to build accurate quotes, and that often means putting a lot of effort in up front to organize and standardize and create the tools that they can use that allow them to just quickly build those accurate quotes. Then obviously the next step is to send informative, clear and pretty quote documents. I think everybody does do pretty quote documents. People like to see that, and that's pretty visual, and it's easy to go, oh, that document looks horrid or it looks nice. It's a lot harder to really make it informative and clear. And I think for this, you need to take a view from your customer standpoint. If I'm a new customer who knows nothing about you and your team and your processes, does the quote I've just received give me every bit of information I need to be confident in placing this quote? And is that information clear? Do I understand what your terms and conditions are? Do I have a link to your returns policy? Do I know how to pay for this? Do I know how to process the order? Do I know when I'm going to receive the goods? Do I have, if your products are complicated, do I have all the product information I need to know that this product is the right product for me? Do I have an easy way to ask questions? All of those things are the information that the customer needs to confidently place an order. The list of products and the prices, they definitely need those, but that's rarely enough for a customer, particularly a new customer, to place an order with confidence. And I think one way to look at this is to think that the person your salesperson has spoken to, the person you've spoken to at the customer, if you imagine they're not the buyer, so they don't have authority to place this order, their job is just to get the quote. And what happens after that is they get the quote and they go to their supervisor, their boss, their colleague to ask them to sign it off. So everything that the salesperson has said on the call and in talking to that person is of no use. I mean, it obviously was of use and you should be doing that stuff. But if you imagine, none of that gets transferred to this supervisor, and the supervisor is going to make a decision about buying or not buying your goods based on the quote you sent alone. Will they have everything they need to buy? Or will they have to come back and ask a load of questions and make the whole process slower, less efficient, and give you a lower close rate because perhaps somebody else has sent a more informative quote. So if you really think about it that way, make sure this quotation is in a complete package that lets the customer buy with confidence based purely on what they've received in this quotation. The next thing is definitely make it easy for your customers to say yes and place that order. And I will definitely be looking at how you can do that. If the customer's got everything they need and they want to buy it, how easy is it for them to buy? Let's make it super easy, whether that this is in your working day, or they're looking at it in the evening, or they're looking at it over the weekend, or first thing in the morning. Can they, in 5 seconds, place that order and be done with it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have the confidence to know that they've done that and the goods are on their way? The next one is less obvious, but I would really recommend that you think hard about this, and that is make it easy for the customers to say no. If a customer is not going to buy, then that is a shame. But if you make it easy for them to tell you they're not going to buy, then you have the opportunity to try again. And even if you're not successful in trying again, you've got much more data and information much more quickly and more precisely to help you to do what I was talking about before, which is to review the data you've got, look at these processes and see if you can improve the quotation or the prices or whatever it is that you need to improve in order to get more customers to say yes. And then the final thing is, obviously, once you've got this order, you want to ensure that that's passed efficiently to your warehouse or your operations team. And you want to do that really quickly, without fuss, and without doing any rekeying or creating any rekeying errors. And that's partly to save you the admin, but it's also part of the customer experience. Customers don't want to be told that their order is going to take 3 days to arrive because you've only just processed it 2 days later. They've pressed yes to send you the order. They want to know it's being processed immediately and they're going to get the goods as quickly as possible. So those are some of the things that we're going to be trying to achieve as we set up this quote to order workflow. And you'll see that we'll kind of step through this in stages as we go. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of actually building our quotes and achieving the objectives that I've just set out there, I just want to clarify that there's a number of scenarios in the CRM where you might go about building a quote. And I just really want to emphasize that they're basically all the same. So if you click on the great big plus button in the top right of the CRM system, you'll get the global create menu. And there's 4 different ways you can go about getting to a quote in our system. One of them is to just create a sales order. So customer rings you up and says, I want to place an order. Then you would go in and you'd click sales order. And you might imagine that's not a quote, but in reality it is. The customer's rung up and said, I want to place an order. They're going to give you the list of the products that you put in. You're going to tell them how much that is at the end. And do they want to go ahead? And even if they say yes, you have still quoted them. Admittedly, it's a very short quotation process, and you've done it verbally, but you have quoted them. And of course, it's entirely possible you get to the end of that, and it's more than they were expecting, or the prices have gone up or something, and they say to you, oh, could you just send me that as a quote so that I can just get my boss to sign it off, or so that I can review the pricing before I confirm the order. And effectively that is a quote now, even though you thought you were starting with a sales order. And all of the things I'm going to show you are equally applicable to a sales order, or something, a sales order that becomes a quotation as much as something that was a quotation in the first place. Obviously, the customer might just ring you up or send you an email and ask you for a quote. And that process is what I'm going to show you, the straightforward quotation process. That's what I'm going to use for my example today. But it's equally worth considering that you might also generate a quote as part of managing a sales opportunity or a customer support problem. So, an opportunity would be used if, particularly you've got a new customer who's inquiring about the range of products you've got, and you might have a whole conversation about what products you've got and how you do business. You might go and see them. You might need to do a site survey if you're selling coffee machines or something, and talk to them about their requirements. And that might go on for weeks or even months before you actually generate the quote. So you might build an opportunity, develop that opportunity, and then get to the quotation stage. Equally, customer might ring you up with a problem about some goods, and then it turns out that they just don't have the right goods, or that they need some spare parts or something, and you might do a quote to sell them the spare parts, or some kind of service visit or something. And as I say, the quotation process I'm going to show you today is equally applicable across all of those. And a lot of the things we're going to do about optimize the quote to order workflow is applicable across all 4 of those scenarios. Okay, so that's the principles and the concepts. Let's get into actually doing these things and step by step building a great quote to order workflow process. So let's start with building accurate and profitable quotes. So here I'm not talking about the actual quote document. Here I'm talking about the list of products and prices that we want to put into our quote. And as I say, this could end up in a verbal quote as much as a written or emailed quote. So quite a lot of things for us to talk about here. I'll talk about some of these pretty quickly, and some of them I'll get into a bit more detail. Some of the key things that will allow us to accurately, profitably, which means quickly, of course, build our quotations is the, if we take a bit of time in advance to build some template quotes, or think about some quotes that we might be able to copy, then we can avoid rekeying all of the products and prices from scratch. So, if there are typical quotes that customers ask for, particularly I'm thinking about either new customers who are taking, a range of samples, you can create a template which has got all of those samples on, and then make it really easy for the sales team to put that quote together. And as I'll show you, they can actually pick and choose items off that template, but it just makes it really easy. Or if you've got a customer who buys every week and they're buying the same thing every time, you can create a template that's specific to that customer as well. And if you haven't done any kind of pre-planning, you can just copy a previous quote. But either way, those things help you to put a big list of products together without having to type them all in. The other thing that can work is a CSV or an Excel import. And for this, you might have customers that already do send you Excel files, and maybe that'll work. Or maybe you want to build a template for yourself that you can send out to customers and say, fill this in, and then we'll process your order nice and easily. But again, that avoids you having to rekey all of those things. If you're not doing either of those, obviously one critical part of this process is finding the right products and being able to add those to the quote. There's then a whole load of things that are perhaps optional, but most people would use. So price lists, which might be in your ERP system and managed from there, managed in your inventory management system like Unleashed or Deer or Sin7 or Sage, or you might choose to use the price list within the CRM. So I think most of our customers will use price lists that have been set up in their inventory management system, but you might find for whatever reason that those are too limiting, or you want to have a different system, or you want the sales people to manage the price list themselves, in which case you might opt to use that in the CRM. Or if you're using a system like Xero, which doesn't really have any price list functionality, then you would certainly want to use the CRM system for creating price lists that don't otherwise exist in your ERP system. There's all sorts of information panels and things that you can look up. There are lots of options as to whether you want to be able to edit the price, the costs, the descriptions throughout your quote. There might be the requirement for salespeople to type free text description lines into your quote that aren't so much products, but are just kind of memos they've added or comments that specifically want to be part of the order. You might take card payments. You might always take card payments. You might sometimes do. And then we've got some sort of slightly more advanced options for product creation. So obviously you've got some products already set up in your ERP or inventory management system, but your salespeople might be quoting that existing catalog of products that you've got, or they might be quoting products from a supplier's catalog, and you might not have all of those set up in your ERP system. So it might be important for the salespeople to be able to quote products you don't have set up, and then when you take the order, to then be able to create those products in your ERP system and manage that flow as well, without having to, go back and forth between your ERP system and your CRM system. You might charge delivery charges. A lot of people do, and you might just use our very simple manual delivery charge where you just type in whatever the delivery charge is. But we do also have a massive configuration system where you can set delivery charge rules based on lots of different criteria. Upsell items, I think this is an area that people don't use a lot because it takes quite a lot of configuring to link the different products together and say which is an upsell from which product. But if you can take the time to do that, you're definitely going to increase the profitability of the quote, because you'll be getting all those kind of optional upsell items prompted for much more often. And I think what I tend to see when I talk to customers about this is there'll be one or two salespeople who are really good at doing the upsell, and there'll be other salespeople who are not. And what you want to do is find out what the upsells that are being successful from certain salespeople, processize that within the system so that everybody is doing those upsells, more regularly and more efficiently, because the system is helping them to do that. We've introduced some new features around setting minimum margins on quote lines so that you can kind of start to control that and increase the profitability by either warning salespeople or insisting upon a minimum margin. And then there are some features. These items are kind of grayed out here because I'm really not going to get into these. We won't have time today, but and they won't be applicable to everybody here. But if you're doing multi-level pack sizes, so you sell them in individuals, boxes of 5, pallets of 20. We've got quite a lot of functionality around that. Quote grouping, where maybe you want to group them into, the products to go into room 1 and the products to go into room 2 and the products to go into room 3. You can do that and output kind of quotes that are grouped and subtotaled in different sections. You can restrict products so that some products might be specifically designed for customer A, and there's a few other products that are specifically designed for customer B, and you don't want everybody buying those products because maybe they're stamped with that customer's brand, or maybe there are some products where only the accredited customers can buy those, your premium customers or the customers who've been on a given training course. So you can restrict who's able to buy certain products. And you can also relate products you're selling to equipment items where you're then going to want to track that equipment item. I'm thinking things like coffee machines, where you sell it, you give it a serial number, and then you want to track the fact that that customer's got that serially tracked item. It's in warranty, it's not in warranty. And again, that won't be applicable to very many people on this call, so I'm not going to cover those things. I just wanted you to know that they're available, if you want to ask some follow-up questions. Okay, so let's dive into the product and have a look at a few of these things as we build a quote. So I'm going to jump around between actually building the quote and how some of these things are configured. So apologies in advance for the jumping around, but I think it's probably the easiest way to explain these things, show them in action, and then for some of them, but not all of them, I'll show you where they're configured and how to go about that. So first of all, let's just load the record I'm looking for. So let's just do a quick search, and I'm looking to quote Andrew Aldrin from Jamie Oliver's Kitchen. So I've set myself up with a test email address so that I can send myself the quotes later on. And you can see the previous quotes and orders, and you can see I did a test 2 hours ago just to make sure I knew what I was doing. We're going to go ahead and create a new quotation. So I can do that just from the big global create, and this is the screenshot I showed you earlier, where I can just create a quote or a sales order or a quote. If I'm on a contact record, there's a little plus button that directly gives me the things that I can create just from this record. Or if I'm in a specific list, I can just create a new thing to go in this list, which is obviously a quote and order. But I'm going to just use the global create, create a new quotation. It's assumed that I'm going to create this for Andrew Aldrin because that's what I'm looking at the moment. But I could, these are perhaps some other records I've loaded recently, or I can search for somebody else to do a quote for, or I can even create a new contact on the fly. But obviously I'm going to do this for Andrew. I can give it a description. You'll note this is optional. And if I don't give it a description, it will get an automatic description of, quote 57 or whatever the next quote number is. But I'm just going to call this for jams. And the first thing I want to show you is this idea of templates. So you can create a template and define things as a template. And if you do that, they'll just automatically appear in the list. And I can just quickly choose them. Or I can search for another quote. So I can search for another template or just a quote that I did last week and copy the lines in from that. And I'll just show you that. So if I choose that template, here is, this is a very simple template, and I've just got a couple of lines on it from that. I can even untick some of these if I don't want to include them. I can tell if I want it to recalculate the prices for this customer so that I'm not using the template prices, I'm using this customer's price list. And obviously that you might want to do one or the other depending on whether the template is perhaps for a promotion where you've put specific cheaper prices in or something. But I can just very easily, if I don't do this, I'll end up with a blank quote where I just put the lines in individually. But I'm going to go ahead and do this and just create my quote. And you'll see that it's created with these products already in, which is nice. You'll also see that this quote that I've built, it's warning me that these lines are below the minimum margin. And this is a new feature that we've created recently, and I'll show you how to set that up in a second. So I'm going to go and develop this quote, but let's just pause for a second and just quickly show you where to go to set some of these things up. Obviously, if you want to learn more, there's lots of documentation. If I go to the help, you can either search the documentation for some of these things, or you can go to the academy, which will give you kind of a bit more of a step-by-step flow of all the different things that you might want to set up. You might also find some of the key basic concepts in the setup guide. If you just go to continue the setup, obviously this setup is just the key things. It's not all of the things that you might want to do, but lots of things that you can set up in here. And if I kind of scroll back to the top, somewhere in here, here we go. Building quotations. There's lots of stuff to help you build and set up your quotations. And as I say, but I think for most of us, perhaps just go to the documentation and search for some of these things. But just to point you in the right direction, that template that I chose, they're really easy to set up. Just go into the CRM, build a quote, and then convert to a template. And you could either convert this into a template for everybody, i.e. all of your customers, and then that will be a global template that you can use when you're quoting any customer, or you can make it a template that's just applicable for this company. So, this company orders every week, and this is their typical order, or this particular person, perhaps you wouldn't, this is the least likely, I suspect, but this particular person regularly orders this every week, and so we set it up as a template for them. And if you do that, it'll just appear in that list. As I say, if you don't do that, you can still search for this quote based on its description or the customer or whatever, and then just copy the lines. But that's how you set up templates. This minimum margin, as I say, is a new feature. And if I just go into the system settings, just to show you where this is, obviously you'll need to be an administrator to do this. And if I just search for margin, you can set a quote and line minimum margin. And if you set a number in here, it will ensure that every line has got a minimum 15% margin. And once you've set that, there's another option that says, what are you going to allow? What are you going to do if the salespeople do a quote that's below that margin? Are you still going to allow them to continue, or are you going to not allow them to continue until they fixed it? I've left this at allow, which basically means it's just a warning. Obviously, if you make it disallow, then it is an enforced rule, and they'll have to go and change something to make that work. So I can fix this by increasing the prices. I do want to just show you the analysis tab at this point, which gives me a more kind of a breakdown on the analysis of this quote that I'm building. So gives me the cost, the margin, the unit margin as an actual number, the markup if I work on markup, so I can see where my margin is too short. But maybe I'm happy that my total margin is pretty close to my the minimum that we're looking at, and so I'm not going to worry about it. Yep. Okay. So we've talked about creating from a template. I'm just going to quickly, without trying to confuse everybody, just go back and just show you that based on was here, and that's the jam making equipment. That's what we chose, and that's why we've got these quote lines already set up here. The other thing about creating quotes is you can really easily just drag and drop a CSV file down here, and it will pop up and ask you, to process that table and show you what it's going to process. If you've never done that before, it's really easy to import products from Excel CSV. And if you go to this screen rather than just looking at the drag and drop, you can obviously browse for a file, you can paste for a clipboard, but the really useful thing to be able to do initially is just download an example file. And if I open that, you can see here's an example. Just pick some random products from your system and gives you an idea of the sort of thing you can put in. But you can put all sorts of other columns in there, and you can go and read the documentation and then literally just drag and drop that in or browse to it, and it will put a whole load more lines on your quote nice and easily. Okay, then we've got searching, and the simplest thing I can do is just click into the search, and it will give me some recommended products. You can see it's recommending retro jam, or I can search for jam making, and it will give me all the different jam making items. Obviously, in true Blue Peter fashion, this is now a product that I've set up with some upsells. So if I'm selling a jam making kit, it's recommending that I also sell the customer the battery charging device for our jam maker. And I can add that to the quote, or I can say I don't want to add it. There's actually a range of different upsell configurations that you can do, and I'll show you how that's done in a second. But for now, I'm just going to continue and add my jam making. And then let's just go and have a look at the other searching options. So I can search, I can look at my recommended items. I can add a description only item. So if I do that, you know, I can type in anything I like, and you can see there's no SKU. It's just a description item. I can give it a price, or whatever. And you can base this on a product code as well, so that it pre-populates the text and pre-populates the price, if you want to do so. The other thing I can do is create a new product. And as I say, if I'm maybe a salesperson who's looking at a supplier's catalog, then maybe we don't have this product in our ERP system. I can just go and create a product. And there's quite a lot of stuff, complexity around this that I'm not going to get into, but I can basically search for a product to base it on. And we can either have some kind of generic products for the different types of products we sell that might be useful, or I can literally just use an existing product that's the most similar to the product that I'm about to create. And that just makes it really easy to populate a lot of these things. And means that we don't have to fill in every single field. And then I'll populate the SKU and things, and I'll create the product, and then I can quote on it on the fly without having to go into Unleashed or into another product, set up that product, wait for it to sync back into the CRM. You know, I can do it all on the fly from the one screen, which, you know, again, all about trying to make the process as simple as possible. You know, even if we've got the complexity of creating new products, let's make that as simple as we can. So we put some of these products in. I'm just going to go to the jam making kit and just show you that if you go to the products in the CRM, there's all sorts of information I'm not going to get into. But one of the key things is that I can do some upsell. And you can import upsell in bulk now. This is a feature we've added fairly recently. But if I just do one upsell, just to show you that I can search for maybe some pots. We haven't got any pots, that's really helpful. Some jars. There you go. I'm going to suggest that we sell a jam set with our jam making kit. So let's select that. And I can link these products together and make it a must sell. So like literally you have to have this thing with that other thing. Or I can make it a recommended thing to go with it. Or let's say if we had a jam making kit premium, then that would be an upgrade. So somebody's asked for the jam making kit, I can say maybe you want the deluxe jam making kit. And obviously instead of adding that as well, if you chose the upgrade, it would have replaced the item with the more valuable item. Hopefully those three options are pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to put this in as a recommended, create that. And then I'm going to go and delete this line and put back my retro jam making kit. And now you can see it's recommending those two different things, and I can turn those on, etc., or turn them off. Okay, so we're now kind of building our quote. Probably worth just saying that there's obviously only a few fields being shown here. You can configure some basic bits here nice and easily just with some checkboxes. So if I want to be able to enable the editing of descriptions, I can do that, and you can see those descriptions suddenly become editable. Editable cost, you might want salespeople editing the cost, you might not. There are some rules around that. The edit lines in TTLV, I'll kind of show you what that really means in a second, but I'm not going to turn that on. Or I can actually go and select new fields to add to this grid if there's some specific fields that I want to show in this table. But obviously you just can't possibly show every field in this table. So you've got a lot of information panel on the side, which I can pin if I want to, so that it's always showing. And then as I kind of click around the rows, it'll be there, or I can leave it floating so that then I just go to another row and click it again, and I get the information about the other row. And this shows you my price, my cost price, the margin again, how much is available by in total, how much is available in each different warehouse, recent history is really useful. So this is, if the customer says to me, I'm sure I bought it at £33 last time, I can easily say to the customer, well, you have definitely bought it at £33 in the past, but actually the last time you bought this in December, it was £34, and that's our current price because, obviously we've had an inflationary increase. So that's kind of really useful. I can also set up an extended description to just give a bit more detail and other bits and pieces in there. That option about editing in detail, obviously you've got this panel which is a little bit small. If you want to, you can see all of that information in full screen by either clicking on that edit detail, or the option will take you straight to here instead of taking you to the the little preview panel instead. So lots of different ways to kind of get through that. And actually, if I'm in full screen, what's really nice is these little up arrows will let me look at each of those in turn. Okay. So we talked about the information panels, we talked about editing the prices, we talked about free text description lines. I actually haven't got Stripe set up, but it's really easy if you do want to take credit card payments to just go to the card payment system and then you can connect to Stripe. And once you've done that, I can take card payments on the phone through this screen. So if the customers, we've got them on the phone and they want to place this order, I can take a card payment here. But obviously, we'll also see how the customer can enter their own card payments in a little while through the customer portal when we send the quote out to the customer. We talked about product creation. We'll talk about delivery charges now. So down at the bottom, we've got delivery, and there's no delivery set, which is sort of contrary to the configuration I've set up. So there's a little warning here that tells me that the delivery may need setting up. And if I click on that, it'll take me straight to the delivery panel, or I could have obviously navigated there if I'd wanted to. This gives me the address. I can change the delivery address, and so there might be lots of different delivery addresses. I can search the whole CRM for a different delivery address if I wanted to, or I could literally type in a new delivery address. I'm going to choose that address, and you can see it's now sending it to Bristol. And because this is actually a real address, Google Maps has found that, and it's actually showing me the location as well, which is quite cool. I can put in a phone number for it or whatever. But down here it says, for this delivery address, these are the recommended delivery options. And I can configure a whole set of rules about delivery by country, by postcode, things like that, by value. So free delivery for over £100. Next day delivery, 3 to 5 working day delivery. Maybe next day delivery is not available in Scotland, but it is in the UK, or it is in New Zealand, but not in Australia, whatever that rule might be. I can also set up manual delivery charges as an option. So I'm going to say, yeah, it's a £10 delivery charge. And you can make it manual, but enforce a rule that says it can't be 0. So, it is manual. Salespeople can negotiate it, or, look up in some other system what it should be and type it in, but they can't put it in a 0, whatever the rules might be. So I'm going to save that. So I've now got a £10 delivery charge. If I go back to the details, you can see that the delivery is now being added as £10 to give me my full price. Upsell items we've covered, minimum margin we've covered. If I just go to the system settings again, I thought I got this loaded up, but just to remind you, that's where you set the minimum margin. And there we go. We've got a quote. We've put our products on it. I did it in fairly slow time because I was obviously explaining all the different bits, but hopefully everybody can see that, particularly if I used a template, I could build a whole quote in about 3 seconds. It might take me 5 or 10 seconds to load a CSV file with 100 products on it. Or if I had to add the products one at a time, because there's recommended products and things, I can do that pretty quickly. One final thing I just want to show you is that if you go to the Add Products button, or come down here and click the search, there are other ways to search as well. So I can do a full list search for jam, which kind of gives me them all. and allows me to add multiple jams in one go. So I don't not just adding lines one at a time, but I can add 5 of these jams, 10 of these jams, 20 of those jams, all just down this table, and then click add and it'll add them all in one go. I can look at all the recently purchased items. So these are things that this customer normally buys. And I can again just go and add 5 of those, 10 of those, and quickly add those. Or I can say what other popular products across all of my customers, and quickly add a bunch of those as well. So really easy to build a quote quickly, and hopefully everybody has seen that. So let's go back to our PowerPoint for a second, and we'll come back to the demo in a second. So we build an accurate and profitable quote. Inevitably, the next thing we'll be able to do is actually send that out as a document. So let's talk about that for a second. We've got a whole plethora of different ways that you can build document templates, and I'm not going to go into them all, but my favorite, I think the most popular, that kind of ticks the boxes I talked about, you know, a complete document set that helps your customer to buy, and is easy for your customer to use, would be an email that you send out with some PDF documents attached and some links that the customer can click on for additional information. So that sort of email cover with PDF attachments is my favorite. I will mention pinning the common templates because I've seen lots of people not using this, and it's just a tiny little efficiency that your salespeople will love if you can do that. We'll need to talk about the layouts of the quote table as well. And this was something that I think customers found difficult to do, and we ended up having to do for people. But also there were some limitations in the system that we built. And we built an all new system to make that much easier. It's way easier to follow, way easier to use, and also adds more flexibility. So if you're using the old quote layouts, they still work, but I'd really recommend you have a look at the new configuration system because it's much easier. And I'm obviously not going to show you the old one, but I'll touch on the new one as we go through. Product images are critical, I think, if you're selling the right kind of products, you can include those. And as I say, in terms of this idea of sending a complete quote, the library feature is really useful in helping you to build a complete set of documents that helps the customer to buy, ensures they've got your terms, all the product details they need. And you can obviously manually attach things to your quotation email, but if you auto attach them, obviously you're making it super efficient for your salespeople. One thing I'd ask you to think about a little bit carefully, though, is whether you want these to be links or whether you want them to be attachments. I think that there are appropriate methods for different kinds of documents. I think it can be appropriate to attach the actual quotation as a PDF because people like to be able to print it, forward it onto people, and you can make it look way prettier than you can in an email. Problem with making an email pretty with HTML layout is it then can get completely screwed up by looking at it on a phone or different email systems, or just if you make the HTML too complicated, it can render badly. Images are missing, things like that, if the customer hasn't sort of downloaded your images. But the PDF, you can make that super pretty. So I definitely go for a PDF for that. I might opt for a PDF for my terms and conditions, because obviously terms and conditions change over time, and you might want to make sure that the customer literally had a copy of your terms and conditions, and that later on you can go back and prove which one they had, because that was a specific one that you did. But for a lot of other things, I think I would use a link for two reasons. One, it makes the email much smaller. Secondly, you can then track the clicks, and I'll show you that later on in this session. And then you'll see that the customer looked at your product information or whatever it might be. Okay, so those are the key things that we want to talk about. Let's go back to the product and take a look at some of these things. So I'm going to show you these again, and then we'll worry about how to configure them. So first of all, I'm going to send my quote. One feature I'm going to show you here is the delivery details pop-up. This is entirely configurable. So I've talked a lot about sending quotes really quickly and easily. And adding another pop-up that gets in the way of salespeople doing that isn't always the best thing to do. So if your quoting is really simple and you're confident your salespeople are getting them right, that they're getting the delivery details right, that kind of thing, then you don't need to render this pop-up. I actually can't remember. I think this pop-up may not even be configured as standard, but you can turn this on. And it just, if you want to turn it on, it helps to remind the salespeople to check the delivery details. And obviously they can choose a different delivery address, or they can search for one using postcode lookups and things like that. Add any kind of delivery notes, and check the delivery charges. You can also use this pop-up in configuration in configuring some of the other settings that make certain things mandatory. So if your delivery charges are mandatory, then this pop-up will enforce those. If a customer order reference is mandatory, then this can help to enforce those rules as well. Talk about some of those rules later on. Or, as I say, you can just get rid of this and you'll go straight to the email that we're about to look at. So this has automatically taken me straight to an email template. I could choose a different email if I actually want to send a different email, but it's taken me straight to this template. And this template pretty much is my favorite configuration. So a plain text email works really well in all browsers, works really well on a phone, doesn't cause issues with images being missing and things like that, but obviously doesn't look super pretty either. So attached to that, we've got our PDF. And obviously, I'll show you what this looks like, but I'm just going to show you that I can preview that. If I want to look at it and check it in detail, I can actually download the PDF, look at that PDF and really check that it's right. But a quick preview is probably all I need for now. Let's see, if I want to preview it, it has to build the preview image, and I can have a quick look and see that that looks pretty good. I can get it to send me a copy, and it will remember your settings here. So probably, you know, first few you want to send out, you might want to send yourself a copy, but you might get bored of that after a while and turn that off. Obviously, you do want to save a copy of these. Maybe you don't want to save a copy of every email you send, but this one you definitely do want to save. And the signatures are configurable as well. And you can see it's filled in a subject. One thing that I really want to highlight in these auto attachments, because it's a feature we added perhaps 6 months, a year ago. And so if you built your templates before we added that feature, you may not be using it. You can see that the file name for my attachment here is, you know, that's my jam quote with the reference number in the file name. And so we've had the ability to attach these as attachments for a while, but we've more recently added the ability to build a dynamic file name so that the file name includes the quote reference. So if the customer's downloading these quotes and then looking at them later on, they've saved 3 of them, they've all got different names rather than all having the same, that's my jam quote, or something like that. Yep. We've also made it so that you can have a customer-facing file name and an internal description that are 2 different things. So actually, this template is called the simple quote template, which is useful for our salespeople to know it's the simple quote template. But you wouldn't want to send out a quote to a customer that says simple quote.pdf. So that's a really nice enhancement that we've done based on customer feedback. You can also see that I've got a PDF that is a static PDF, which I've attached, and that came from our library, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. Just before I finish with that, let me just show you that you can also link things in the library. So I've got a hyperlink to this same terms and conditions document. So it's both an attachment and a hyperlink. You probably don't need to do both, but I've done that to illustrate the 2 options there. But I can go and add other attachments as well. Obviously, I can browse or drag and drop things on my PC. If there are previous documents that I've created against this quotation or the sales opportunity, I can just quickly go and attach those. So if I've built a whole kind of project plan Word document or an Excel analysis for the customer, and I save that against this quote, I can just quickly go and attach that to this email. I can go and create a new document using all the templates we've got. So if I wanted to put a statement of works together, I can just quickly attach that as a Word document, or I can attach it as a PDF, and it'll automatically convert from a Word document to a PDF for me. I keep saying Word document. I should say that if you're using Gmail, obviously you can create your document in Gmail. You can save it out as a docx. That's a standard format. And then you can still load that in. And you don't need a Microsoft Word license to generate these. We will convert from a docx to a PDF because docx is an open standard that is supported by Gmail and Microsoft. We've got some extra tools that make it really easy if you are using Word, but you don't have to have Microsoft Word to be doing this. It's just the format that we're supporting is docx, which originally is Microsoft and is now an open standard. You can also attach things from the library, so I can browse my whole library and attach a whole load of different things to my quote. And obviously I can browse my attachments list to check and remove things. But let's go ahead and send this, and then I'll just take you into some of the configurations that have gone into this. So let's send that and then just have a quick look at some configuration. So if you go into the settings and search for template, you can find our document templates. Don't get confused between groups and templates themselves. Groups just allows me to organize my quotation templates. Taking a second to load that. Probably because I opened this hours and hours and hours ago and it's logged me out. Apologies for that. So I can configure the document groups, which just lets me put them into groups, not terribly important. But if I go into my settings, and I've refreshed and search again for template. If I go into the actual document templates, there's a whole lot of templates already created in here. I can create a new one and decide whether I'm creating an email, an Excel, or a Word template, and I give it descriptions and things like that. But if I just go to the ones that I've been using, so I've got this email cover for my PDF quote, and if I look at that, I can configure it from this panel, or I can open that in full screen. Obviously, I can edit the actual email itself, and you've got a whole load of kind of merge things, so I can merge all sorts of different fields in here. So if maybe I wanted to put the actual cost into the email, the value of my quote, I can go in here and put my let's put that in here for the value. You can see there's hundreds of fields, but if I can put in there the total excluding VAT or the total including VAT, and I could just merge into my email the total value nice and easily. Obviously, you put things like dates and details of the user who's sending the quote, although probably you'll configure all of this stuff in a footer that you're going to merge. So I can obviously do all of that. There's a couple of other things that I can do, like I can choose which signature I'm going to use with this template, where am I going to use it on a quote, pinning it to the menu. I'll show you that in a second. But the reason why this quote email was the default when I opened it is because I pinned this and it's the top pinned item. I can also attach templates. So this is a different template which is being merged in, and I'm doing that as a PDF. So this is my quote template, and then I'm attaching a static file from the library, which is my terms and conditions. And I can go and create a new one, a new attachment if I want to, and just statically attach something. I just leave this for a second and go to my actual simple quote document. So this is the quote document that I've included. And again, I'll just open this in full screen. Obviously, there's the Word document. And if I edit that, it'll open it in Microsoft Word. if you haven't already, I'd recommend that you get the Prospect CRM add-in for Word. You can get that from Insert, Get Add-ins, and obviously we've got some documentation about that. But you then get the Prospect CRM add-in, and again, that lets you manage the merge fields in your template nice and easily. But here you can see I've got a kind of quote table. I've got a quote table total. I've got authorization buttons, which we'll talk about later on. And down at the bottom, I've got kind of additional product information. I've given a bit of a generic link to our website, which is really useful. But I've also got this merge field for some specific product information, which we'll talk about later on. So that's my document template. We can obviously fill in description and things like that. One thing I just really wanted to emphasize is this file name. So as well as the description, you've got the actual specific file name, and you can see that I've got a merge field of quote ID in that. So if you haven't got that set up, I'd recommend you go ahead and set that up. I haven't pinned this to the menu because I'm not really going to use this on its own. I'm going to use it from my email attachment. So let's kind of get back out of all of that. Go back to the quote that we've sent out. And I'll just very briefly show you that pin to menu means that I've now got this create email cover for a PDF quote. I can have multiple templates pinned if I use a couple of different templates. And obviously, if I just go and send a quote using this button, it'll pick the first one of those to use, but I can change it to a different one, or I can go to this menu and pick the specific one that I want to use. Okay. Very quickly then, if I just go back to the settings and I search for the table, the quote tables, I can set up a whole lot of different quote tables, and you'll see that this one is configured using the new lines preview. So this is the quote lines table rather than the quote totals or subtotals for a grouped quote. The lines preview, if I open this, is nice and simple. Just give it a description. But when I go to configure columns, I can actually put these columns in. I can edit this. So if I don't like skew, I can put product code or something like that in there. I can remove columns I don't want. I can add columns nice and easily. I can turn on and off product images. I can configure the price. So the decimals is automatic, or I can set the decimals, things like that. Product images, I can change the size of the product image in my quote, etc. So really nice and easy way to configure quote tables using the new system. If you're using the old system, it's really easy to just go in and create a new table, choose lines preview, give it a new description, go and set it up, check it out, and then go to your quote template and swap your old lines table for your new lines table, and you'll be away. Okay, very quickly then, just in terms of the library, obviously it's really easy to add things into the library. If I go to my terms and conditions, one thing that's pretty important is to know whether you're making this a public or a private document. If you make it public, then you'll get a URL that you can use to just send the customer a link to that document. If you make it private, you can still attach it as a PDF because you're then just sending that out. You don't have a public link to it, but you need to make it public to get this link that I've used in different things. If I come out of this and I go to some of my product brochures, you'll also see that I've linked this particular brochure to specific products. And that does another neat little trick, which I'll show you in a second. Okay. Let's, as I say, let's go back to our PowerPoint and move on to the next section. Apologies if I'm rushing, but feel free to ask any questions in the chat. And as I say, we'll be more than happy to either answer some follow-up questions by email, or we'll be sending out some follow-up links, as well as the recording if you want to come back and watch some of this in slower time. Okay, so quote acceptance. We've sent our quote. I haven't shown you the email yet, but I'm going to kind of show you that. But when it comes to the customer receiving that quote, some of the key things we want to have set up is our automatic order confirmations. We don't want any vague confirmations, like an email from the customer that says, yeah, that's great. Well, are they saying the quote's great, or the quote's great and I want to place my order? They send you an email that says go ahead, but our business rules mean that we now need a credit card, so we have to ring them back. Or maybe we've got some simple rules that says we always want to get a customer order reference, a purchase order reference. Well, now I have to email back and ask them for their purchase order reference. Maybe we received an email, but the salesperson's on holiday. So we don't even know that they've placed their order because nobody's looking at the email. So, those kind of vagaries of order confirmation, with modern tech, they should be a thing of the past. So what we really want to do is make sure we've got our quote to order workflow buttons embedded in our email and in our PDF. We had them in the emails for a while. We've added the functionalities. You can put them in the PDF now. And if you don't have them in both your templates, email and PDF, definitely go ahead and do that. Let's make it easy for the customer, whatever they're looking at. Let's make sure we've configured our portal really easy so that it's kind of branded for our colors and our logo. There's some options for, do we want to request or require credit card payments, either by customer or by system-wide, or you can set it on an individual quote. Do we, perhaps slightly more advanced, do we want to request a purchase order reference, so you can make it so that you always have a purchase order reference? You might do that. I'd recommend against that, unless you really need it, because you've just put a barrier in the way of the customer placing an order. They have to give you a reference. At the end of the day, if they've clicked a trackable link of approve, do you really need a reference number to go with it? Probably not. However, there is an option that lets you configure this customer by customer, which is much more useful, because if you've got a big customer that says, we won't pay your bills, or your bills will be delayed unless you tell us our customer order reference, then you definitely want it. But you don't want it for every customer. You want it for those customers where they're saying to you, we want you to enforce a rule of a customer order reference. Then you're going to help that customer by doing so. And that's a really neat little feature if you've got customers like that. We do also have some spend limits and order placing authority. I'm not going to go into those because those really are advanced features and probably not applicable to everybody. But if you've got big customers where they want to limit who can spend what, or who's able to authorize these orders, then we've got some functionality around that as well. A new feature that we've released fairly recently, but is really great, and we'll be building on this over time, is obviously the ability to track the fact if the customer hasn't clicked your buttons and they haven't confirmed your order, check that they've at least received it. Have they opened it? Have they maybe clicked on some of your product links? That would be really nice to know. So I'll show you that in a second as well. Okay, let's go back and have a look at those things. So first things first, if I can remove my control panel. Here's my email, and here's the quote in my inbox. Obviously, I can go straight to the attachments. That's one of the nice things, the attachments, they're kind of there, ready to go. If I look at the email in detail, though, you can see this is all the merge details. It's got the quotation reference with the version number attached. I've also got that in the text here, sorry. I've got a link to my terms and conditions nice and easily. And obviously, I've made it really nice and easy for the customer to approve or decline my order. Show you those in a second. But let's just go. We've got our terms and conditions PDF attached. And I've got my actual PDF attached. And this PDF doesn't matter whether you like the styling of this document. We've perhaps gone to town to overly style this document just to illustrate how much styling you can put in. But you can make this as simple or as complex as you like. it's a standard Word document. So you can put in images, you can put in colors, you can put in fonts, you can make it landscape rather than portrait. You can make it A5 if you really wanted to. I don't know if you would, but you could. There's my table, which has got all those options that we looked at before, where I could configure which columns I want in there, and the titles of those things. This is my totals. And again, I've put the approve and reject buttons in my PDF document so that if the PDF was downloaded, it's a standalone complete document that's got everything the customer needs in it, including the approve reject, including the link to the terms and conditions. So I've put that in the email and in the Word document, and I recommend you do that. Obviously, any nice text you want to put in there just to be friendly. And then one really cool thing, as well as the sort of basic library stuff, and being able to put links to some static content like my terms and conditions, I've dynamically configured some of my products to have specifications. And they've been dynamically populated into my quotation document because I've linked those library files to these specific products. I then put those products into my quote, so the CRM knows that these specification documents are appropriate to this quotation. And then I've included a merge field for, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's sort of lines.files or something like that. It's the files that are dynamically populated and linked based on the quote lines that I've generated. If you're not sure how to do that, then by all means send us a question. We can follow up with a video on how to do that. But what it means is that, you know, I've made it, these could be documents or PDFs or anything you like. I think they can even be links to specific pages on your website if you prefer to do that. Don't quote me on that. I think you can, but you can certainly make them PDFs that are linkable. And then the customer has now, going back to some of the principles that I talked about at the beginning, they've got everything they need in this one PDF to place this order. You know, they've got details of our terms and conditions. They've got details of how to manage returns on our website. They've got specification documents. They've got the prices. They've got the total. They've got the tax, and they can approve this nice and easily as well. Just before I do approve it, what if they want to decline it? If they do want to decline it, that's a shame. But what's really nice is that, you know, they can tell you why they're declining it. Too expensive, if they can type, or whatever it might be. And then they decline, and then you get told that they've declined it because it's too expensive. You can now go back to the customer, or you can learn from the experience and do better next time. Hopefully they'll want to approve it. And the approval process looks like this. Gives them the total value, confirms which quote they're approving. I've set this up so that the purchase order reference is optional, but you know, they could have this as a required field if you've configured it that way. If you set up Stripe payments and configured this quotation to require Stripe, then it can enforce the customer to pay by credit card in order to process their order, or it can be just optional. And either way, I'm going to approve that. And there we go. We've approved our quotation. So let's just go back to our quote. I'll show you, I'm slightly jumping ahead of myself here, but I'll show you this is now a confirmed order, and it's actually already been posted to Unleashed. I've got this linked up to Unleashed. So this order, because the customer clicked accept and there were no other issues with this quote, the customer had already got an account, everything like that. There were no other validation rules. This has been processed directly into Unleashed. And if I had to log into Unleashed, I could go and process it now. But hopefully somebody in our operations team is now sitting there ready to process it. Talk about notifications to tell them to do that in a second. But you know, if I as a salesperson was on holiday, or I got the day off, or I was just busy doing other things, this customer's placed their order. and it's gone straight to unleashed, and we're ready to ship it out without me needing to intervene. The other thing I did want to just show you was if I go back to the documents and I go back to the email document that we sent out, this new feature, as well as being able to kind of see it, which is nice, and see this quote later on if I want to go and have a look at it. This new feature shows me, that it's been delivered, processed, etc. If I go back to my inbox and maybe, so one thing I would say, one limitation of the PDF attachment is that we can't track links in the PDF at the moment. We can only track links on the email, which is a little bit annoying, but that's a technical limitation that we are looking into. But if they click on links in the email, whether it be a quote document or any other email that you've sent out, this isn't just specifically to quotation emails, this is all emails. I just refresh that, you'll see that they clicked on the link and what was the actual link that they clicked on as well. So really super useful if I'm a salesperson trying to follow up on these quotations. Okay, let's head back to our PowerPoint. We're kind of getting nearly there now. So on step 4, processing the order, and I've already done some of this. But the key considerations are, if I'm the salesperson doing it, that order confirmation pop-up that I got before I sent the quote, you can configure that so that pops up for your salespeople as well, so that they're checking this delivery information either before they send the quote out, which is obviously critical if the customer's going to process it themselves, or if they got the customer on the phone and they click the confirm in the user interface. I'll show you that in a second, but fairly obvious, that they would then get that pop-up as well at that moment in time. So you obviously want this stuff confirming before you send the quote or before you confirm the order, whichever way it's being processed. Delivery charges we talked about, but again, just remind you that's sort of key bit of processing the order, getting those delivery charges sent out, and the purchase order references that I talked about earlier. The ability to make them mandatory is new, and I might just show you that configuration option in a second. The margin rules that we talked about earlier, I showed you that earlier. That's new, and you can enforce that so that salespeople can't send the quote or confirm the quote without complying with those rules. There's another validation rule which I've not shown you, which checks to see whether products are obsolete. So if you've got an old quote or an old template, and then you try and use that to create a new quote, and those products are now obsolete in your ERP or inventory management system, we're now validating that and telling people they can't process this order or they can't send the quote without fixing that validation as well. So nice things just to help you get these quotes right. There's then certainly an advanced feature, which I'll just mention, is the ability to set some custom validation rules. So if you've got validation rules that aren't as simple as the ones that we've got as standard, it is actually possible to define any validation rules where just as long as the data is there, we can look up the time of the day, the state of the moon, the weather conditions, the postcode of the customer, whether you've got this product and the customer is a premium customer, so you're not allowed to send that quote, whatever it might be, we can validate it. But obviously that is a very advanced feature and comes with an additional cost. You can create accounts on the fly. So obviously if there's a new customer, I send this quote out, they might not have an account. The customer can accept it using all the automation stuff, but the process in that order will be paused, and the salesperson will be notified the order's been taken, so that they can then go in and we make creating that quote creating the account super simple, or pop up, ask them to confirm the details, create the account in Unleashed, in 7Deer, Sage, whatever, and then process the order. We talked about creating products. Some of our integrations will create the product on the fly as you create the new product for the quote. Some will create it when the quote is confirmed, and that's different based on the limitations of the API from that ERP system we're using. Credit card payments we talked about, and again, I'm not going to get into this, but there is some special equipment processing rules if you're either renting, hiring, or selling equipment that you want to track after you've sold it. So very quickly, I'm not going to get into all of these things, but obviously, if I was confirming the order, I can't do it now because it's already been confirmed, but it says one, if I clicked confirm, then it would pop up and I could make it do that. I just want to very quickly go into the system settings and do order confirm something, allow confirm of unstopped accounts and things like that, delivery schedules. That wasn't the one I wanted. Order reference, maybe. There we go. So if I search for customer order reference, are customer order references required, never required, or are they configurable by customer? And if you make it by customer, then you can go to your big customer who wants purchase order references to always be specified, and then they will always get asked for them and nobody else will. Or if it's your business rule that you want salespeople to always collect them, you can make it a mandatory requirement always. So I just want to show you that rule. And probably I'll just show you delivery charges. I'm really not going to get into this because it's too complicated, but within the delivery charges section, I can disable, enable manual entry, or make it so only administrators can do some of these rules. I can use automatic calculations, standard or custom. Again, custom is an advanced feature. I can configure my rules. What's really nice is I can apply these rules just to administrators. And what that allows me to do is to test all of these rules without enforcing them on everybody. And then when I'm ready, I can make them applicable to all users. And then, you know, then we can make it applicable to everybody with confidence. If you've misconfigured or you haven't got a complete set of rules, you can also set a fallback. You can have a click configure option, etc. Okay, that's probably as much as I'm going to get into there. If you're interested in some of these other things, as I say, there's documentation available. Final step in all of this is the notification. So we've got this order. Who needs to be notified that this order's come in? And there's a bunch of configurations that I can do here, but the kind of key notification types are there's automatic notification if a customer rejects an email, rejects an order. The salesperson will be told about that. If the customer approves the order, they'll get notified. But most importantly, if the customer approves the order, but there's some issues with it, then to all intents and purposes, the customer's approved it, they've done their bit, but the salesperson needs to then go to the order and deal with the issues. The most common issue would be that the customer doesn't have an account yet. And then I just need to go in, do whatever's necessary to set up the account, and then click confirm again, and then it will process through. But the notification will go straight to the salesperson. Assume we can figure out who to send it to, or the account manager, depending on whether there's a salesperson or an account manager assigned. Or if not, it will go to the first administrator that's set up in the system. I will just show you that you can also get a list of any pending orders that haven't processed all the way through, because that's probably a useful thing to be able to look at as well. You can also set it up so that it automatically sends a notification to the customer. Obviously, you can go and manually send them a confirmation, which you might do initially, but once you've defined what your order confirmation wants to look like, then I definitely automate that and just get that done nice and efficiently. So the customer knows that when they click confirm, they've got confirmation of that. And then you can also set up internal notifications. So for instance, the customer clicks accept, that posts all the way through to Unleashed or Sin7 or Sage. You might want the operations team to then process that and do something about it. So let's have just a very quick look at some of those things. First of all, while you can get notified of these things, and somebody will hopefully get notified, if I just go to the overview dashboard, there is a tile for pending orders. And you can see that there are 5 orders here that for whatever reason are waiting to be confirmed. And there will be some issue with these, either there's no account or they don't meet the validation rules, or the salesperson specifically put them in hold before confirming them. So they are confirmed, but they're on hold waiting something, and therefore they've not been written into the ERP system. Yeah, obviously they might be on hold in the ERP system, which is another issue, but these have not been pushed through to Sage or Pegasus or whatever or Sin7 or Unleashed, whatever you're using. These are sitting in the CRM waiting to be confirmed. So really useful. You can get that list if you need to be able to go and find that. But as I say, there's also notifications. And if I go to some of those settings and look for notif, if I can type correctly, notification. So order confirmation email. So I can say for my emails processed to our CRM system, what document template do I want to use? And obviously this needs to be an email template, but you can configure it just like we did with the quotations. So there's a nice little email confirmation. I would keep these super simple though. I probably wouldn't attach a PDF. I'd just do a simple email confirmation. You've already got the order from the customer here. You don't need to go to town. You just want a simple email that confirms they've got this order and perhaps what's on it. There is the option to set a different email template. If you're using our e-commerce CMS system, you can get it to send a different template or the same one for orders that are processed through the e-commerce platform. I'm not going to get into that today. One thing that's perhaps useful is that you can say when you want this confirmation to be sent. Do you want it to go when it's just accepted in the CRM or when it's actually processed into the ERP? I think by default, I would leave it when it's set into the CRM. But if you do have some validation rules that might mean the order gets changed between the customer confirming it and you processing it, I don't recommend that as a process, but there might be reasons for that. Then you might only want the confirmation to be sent out once you've validated it, made whatever amendments need making, like if you are setting the delivery charges afterwards or something, then you might only want to confirm it once it's processed to the account system. I don't think that's a recommended, but it's an option. Do you want to notify internally for new orders? Do you want to disable that? Just orders because they're kind of blind orders, or do you want to do it for all orders, including those for the CRM? And then you can just put, these don't even need to be users in the CRM. This is just a list of email addresses. The reason for that is, you might have an email address for your operations team. So operations@mycompany.com. And this is internal notifications that would tell them there's a new order. Notifications for failed orders, you would almost never want to be enabled. These will automatically be sent to the salesperson or the account manager, but you can access to receive that wants to get these and double check them on behalf of the sales team. Okay, we're saying you can do much more advanced things if you want to with either webhooks or with Zapier. So you could do a webhook on an order being confirmed or Zapier on an order being confirmed to do notifications of all sorts of things to all sorts of people based on all sorts of criteria. But hopefully these simple configurations will be enough for most people. Okay, nearly there. So those are the key features that we've got today in our quote to order workflow. I actually took this slide from the last time I ran a webinar on this, which, what was that, Jess, a year ago, something like that? And I was really pleased, I almost inevitably, that a year ago or so when we did this, I gave a list of features that were being developed or were being considered if customers wanted them, and literally half of those have been delivered since we first ran our first quote to order workflow webinar. Unleashed delivery methods and delivery instructions now integrated into this process if you're using Unleashed. Library files being automatically attached. That wasn't something we had initially, but we've done that now. Credit card payments via the portal wasn't something we had. We only had that via phone, but now it's integrated into the portal for customers to process credit card payments on their own. And that last thing I showed you pretty late on was the delivery, open and click tracking for emails. That is a great new feature we've added based on customer feedback as well. Other things that we've not done yet, but we've thought about, is letting the customers choose their own delivery options. So if you've got next day and 3 to 5 working days at 2 different prices, you might want the customer to choose that when they place their order. So that's a maybe possible. If enough people wanted that, we do that. The portal did show me the quote reference and the total of the quote value, which I think is enough information if they've just been looking at the PDF or the email. But 1 or 2 customers have actually asked us to put that kind of whole table of, these are the products and the prices into the portal. We haven't done that yet, but if enough people wanted that, we could do that. Something we are actively looking at is whether we can automate a process of chasing these emails. So you imagine you've sent this quote, you've got the approve button in there, but the customer doesn't either approve or reject. Hopefully a salesperson is going to come back tomorrow or the day after, chase up this customer and ask them, do you want to go ahead? Do you not? But that's again a step that we need to do. It's admin, it's time, and all these bits of effort erode the profitability and the efficiency of our business. So we're looking at whether we can set up a series of emails so that I send a quote, and if the customer hasn't approved or rejected it within 24 hours, I'll send a chaser. If they still haven't approved it, 3 days later, I'll send another chaser. If they haven't approved it after that, I'll send a reminder to the salesperson to get them to follow it up. And again, that's the other bit. Do we want to have automated chasers to customers? Do we want to have automated reminders to get salespeople to close down these quotes? And if you're interested in any of these things or got any other great ideas for quote to order workflow or any other areas of the CRM, then go to ideas.prospect365.com and give us your feedback. Obviously, we're releasing new features all the time, and just want to make sure that everybody knows that they can go to what'snew.prospect365.com, or they can, I don't know if this video is going to go back to the start.
To the question mark. The question mark in the top right-hand corner of your CRM.
If I
think it does go to the start.
Go back and go forward again. There we go. You can click the question mark and what's new, and then you can see new releases. You can also see some hints and tips and all sorts of things that we're producing to try and help you. We've run these webinars, at a certain moment in time, but I guarantee there'll be something in the next release, the release after that, the release after that, that either potentially fixes a bug that's annoyed you or enhances some functionality that you're using. And I think one of the most difficult things is when you're a new customer, our onboarding team will help you get set up with all the latest features. The templates that you get by default will have all of those probably pre-configured anyway. But if you've been using our quote to order workflow for 6 months, there will be new features that you haven't implemented yet. And I'd really encourage you to try and stay on top of that, because day by day, week by week, year by year, we're trying to build new features, some based on our own ideas, some based on your colleagues' ideas, your ideas, other companies' ideas, to make these processes better. If you don't know that we've improved it and you don't go and implement that improvement, then you won't get the benefit of those things. So hopefully these webinars are useful, but definitely the what's new, keep a track on that as well. If anybody's in doubt whether some of these things are useful, I love this quote from Tom from Brunel Engraving. Tom was quite dubious when we went through the onboarding, I think you won't mind us saying, about our quote to order workflow. And then one of our customer success managers has engaged with Tom over the time, and I think made it a personal ambition to convince Tom into using these. And once implemented, Tom, his feedback was that this is great, and he was really surprised by how many customers just simply click the approve link and process their order automatically and save them time, and just got that order posted straight to Sage, saving them lots of time in processing those orders. One of the feedbacks Tom gave us very early on was he didn't like the decline link, and interestingly, based on that feedback and a couple of others, we are actually doing an enhancement at the moment that allows you to have the approve button without the decline. I'm not sure that's a good idea, because whenever anybody's been convinced to use the decline, including Tom, I think they've started to see the benefit of it. Ultimately, if the customer's not going to buy, they're not going to buy. Whether you give them the decline link or not, they're still going to decline it. They're going to decline it by ignoring you. So you may as well include the decline link. And as Tom says, you get valuable feedback and an opportunity to revise the quotation and try again. And Tom's review overall, I wish I'd implemented this sooner. So if you're a customer that's either recently onboarded, currently being onboarded, or you've used our quotation system for 5 years, if you have not set up some of the things I've shown you, but particularly the approval buttons, go and do that. That does remind me, there's just one thing I didn't show you in all of this demonstration. I didn't show you how to configure your portal. So if you just go in and search for brand, at the moment, you just need to go into your operating companies, because you can have multiple brands for different operating companies. Again, that's an advanced feature. But if you're running 2 businesses, you might want different brands for those 2 different businesses. Most people are going to have one, and actually, in a release coming out in a week or 2, we're actually making it even easier to get to the brand configuration, because a couple of people have struggled to find this, because it's not entirely obvious that you need to go into the operating company configuration. But if you do, and then click on that company, here is your branding configuration. You can set the colors. You can upload your logo. If you're not sure what colors to pick, there's loads of websites out there that if you just search for something like color pick, I found one the other day. You can either just get a simple color picker, but I did found one that was a kind of online tool that allowed me to upload my image. But yeah, I think it might have been this one. You can upload your image, and it'll let you pick from that. There was another one that gave me complementary colors to use, and I could just copy and paste the hex colors into here to configure it with a nice color for my logo and a complementary color to go with it. So if you're not too sure about colors, just find a tool online. These are kind of great tools. But really easy to configure the colors and the logo that you've got on there. So just sort of finally, Jess, I don't know if there are any questions.
Yes, we've got quite a few actually. Thank you for putting those in. If you want to put some questions in now, guys, feel free. I will keep them anonymous, so fire away. So first one, Andy, can any of the ordering rules be configured to apply only to certain customers rather than all?
Yes, that's a good question. So at the moment, the margin rule is global, but if you felt that was something too important to do by customer, then I would suggest logging that in the ideas portal, because that might be a good idea. These are some good suggestions. The product restrictions is absolutely done by customer. The obsolete products rule that I mentioned is obviously global, because if a product is obsolete, it's obsolete for everybody. The purchase order reference, I think I emphasized that can be done by customer. Is that mandatory or optional by customer? Because I think it makes absolute sense to do that. If you're doing custom validation, then that absolutely can be done by customer. As I say, it can be done by the time of day and the weather. Next day delivery, for instance, can't be included after 4 o'clock, but it can for your premium customers, because you make an extra effort for them, whatever you like. But obviously that's quite an expensive way to implement these things. And I think, we're keen that people don't have to do custom rules. We're keen to include the rules that people want as standard. So if you've got some good suggestions, definitely log them or send us some feedback, and we'll look at those specifically. Perhaps one rule that's really important is the delivery charges. And I didn't go into the configuration of that, but when you get into the configuring that, if you look at the documentation or watch some of the videos that our onboarding team have created, one of the key concepts in that is delivery zones, which is regional zones, but also you can specify that a customer is in their own delivery zone. So you, as well as making delivery zones geographical, you can make them groups of customers. So you can say, I've got my premium customer set, and any customers allocated this premium delivery set will get these different rules. So some of them are configurable by customers, some are not, but certainly we can enhance that over time if that's important.
Nice. Can you attach documents related to certain products automatically in a template, e.g. product PDF, manual, etc.?
So, not as an attachment. So we did look at this, but one of the things that we found, and you could potentially be suffering from this anyway, is that if you generate an email template and you put a load of attachments to it, that makes the email slower to send. If you've got really big attachments and lots of them, it becomes slower to send. You do potentially, I think, annoy the customer by having too many PDFs attached and sending them things in their inbox, particularly if you repeatedly send them the same quote. And so for and when we're dynamically populating these, there could be 20 or 30 of these. So we actually took the decision to not attach product-related PDFs automatically. You can, as I did in my example, attach another template like your quote PDF. You can attach static PDFs like your terms and conditions. But if you want health and safety, manuals, product specifications, things like that that are specific to a product, then the only way at the moment to attach those is to attach them as links in the email or in the PDF. And that's what I showed you. If you watch the recording, you go back, you'll see that they were hyperlinks in my PDF document. I could put them as hyperlinks in the email or the PDF. Or if you really wanted to, you could have a PDF that's separate to your quote document that lists all of the kind of related documents, if that seemed like a neat way to do it. But you can't just attach 100 PDFs dynamically. We felt that was a bad idea. But if we're wrong about that and customers really want that, then again, put that in the portal and we'll look at it.
Great. I actually
sorry, Jen, just one more thing. If you're doing that, again, it's important to make sure that you mark those documents as public, otherwise they won't get attached as hyperlinks.
Yes. One question here: what version is the tracking available in? I checked and it's version 91. So I'll have a look for you, a customer that's asked that question, just to see what version you're on at the moment.
Glad you looked that up, yes, because I
91. We wouldn't have known that. neither did I.
There are too many versions, literally one every 3 weeks, so I've got no idea.
So we've just released version 97, haven't we? So
yeah,
okay.
It's almost certain that most customers will be on 91 or later. Yeah,
I'll look at that, because that customer's saying that they can't access that right now. So let me look at that with you. And okay. Support, you mentioned support. Is setting a delivery date option available for quotes, i.e. specific date or lead time generated?
Yes. Just said that with less confidence than I would like. So let's just go to a quote. So you can set a price expiry, which is quite useful. And you can set an order due date. So price expiry is just sort of saying, allows you to merge into the document, this quote is valid until such and such a date. But then you've got the order due date, when is the order going to be due? So I guess, what was the specific question about dates? Just remind me.
So Is setting a delivery date option available for quotes, i.e. specific date or lead time generated? Question.
Yeah, so I think that is the due date.
Yeah.
I think we have got some rules around setting that so many days ahead as well, but I think I would have to look into that and follow up with that.
Okay. Somebody's just said the features shown today, are they available in the startup, CRM and professional? Are they included basically in their subscription?
So I did highlight a few as being advanced features, which means they're only available in advanced. Most of what I've shown you is available in the professional, which is our kind of mid-tier standard system.
Yeah.
Some of them are in preview, which means they're available today, but there might be a cost associated with them. I think there's very few that I've shown today that fall into that category. Pretty much everything I've shown you would be in the professional. Not everything will be in the startup. The startup is intentionally simple and cheaper and less expensive. And so, for instance, the library, which is currently in preview, that's going to be coming out of preview soon. And I believe that will not be available in the startup.
Okay.
But literally almost everything I've shown today or talked about is available in the professional.
Nice. And then can you set up a pay by bank payment with reference on the accept button to avoid excessive payment fees for larger payments?
So you can make the card payments optional.
Yeah.
So that customers only pay by card if they want to. And again, I can't show you because I haven't actually set up the Stripe integration here, but and maybe we can follow up with some specific detail on this. But once you've set up the card payment options on the quote, you can then and again, you might need to set this up, but on the quote, there is an option that allows you to specifically say this quote is expected to be paid by credit card or not. So then if you're sending a larger quote, then it will or it won't. I think it's a very good question. And I think if it was a popular suggestion, we could, I'm sure, do some enhancement where you could set some kind of rules that say don't offer credit card when it's more than £5,000, because clearly not only will you get a significant fee for that, but a lot of credit cards won't handle a £5,000 limit, and you'll end up with bounces and issues and all sorts of things. So I think that might be a good idea. I'd certainly welcome that in the ideas portal if somebody wants to log it, and I imagine people might vote on it. And then obviously we can then have some kind of configuration where you could specify something alternate to the credit card that says, click here for banking details, or this is our bank account, please make your payment here. Obviously, the other thing that you might do is send that in your order confirmation email as well.
And then just a couple of people have mentioned in the chat about training documentation, but I have since seen that you've pointed to that. So that there will be a link to the training documentation for all of these features going out in the follow-up to this. So you can look at each and every feature and set them up one by one. So that's certainly coming out too. That's pretty much it from the questions, Andy.
Okay, thanks, Jess. Final thing, just to kind of summarize, is I emphasized at the beginning that we were only focused on the quote to order workflow, and there are these other areas where I think I'll be happy to come back and do some follow-ups in these different areas. If there's one that you particularly like, feel free to let Jess know, and we'll do whatever's most popular. But certainly, we've got a lot of new features that have come out recently around marketing. We've always been strong on the selling to existing customers and helping you maximize customer lifetime value, which is the last one on this list. And I'm more than happy to look at how we can help you to maximize customer lifetime value, because we've got loads of features there. But I'm also conscious that we might have been weaker than other CRM systems in the past on managing the kind of lead process before you've got a full inquiry. We've got a lot of new features around that. So I'm certain we'll do a follow-up webinar to bring all those features together. Obviously, nurturing those inquiries and taking you through the opportunity to get to a quote is important. Managing that sales process. I think shipping goods, invoicing, inventory management is probably something that you would get from Unleashed and 7Deer, Sage, or whatever. There's perhaps just a few things that we would touch on where our integration works and how you can see stock levels and things like that in the CRM. So maybe that's relevant. One thing that I think people don't think about enough, as I said earlier, is converting people from transactional to relational customers. And I think, there's a lot of advice we can give there. And some features in the CRM that will help you to identify those customers, so that you spend a lot of money getting these customers through your marketing effort. You obviously want to make sure that those inquiries are captured. You obviously then want to maximize the nurturing of those so that they ask you for a quote, maximize the number of those quotes that get sent and confirmed. But then you absolutely want to convert them to repeat customers so they keep coming back, and then you maximize the lifetime value. And that fundamentally is what our growth playbook is all about. So if you haven't seen our growth playbook, definitely take a look at that. We've definitely in the past done webinars on the growth playbook as a whole. And again, that's something we might do as well, just to bring all of these concepts together into a complete package for helping you to grow your wholesale and distribution business. Okay, I think that's pretty much it, Jess. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much, everyone.